It's Friday, September 4. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. The Jamaica Labour Party was re-elected to serve as government for a second consecutive term after a landslide victory at the general election polls held on Thursday, September 3. Melvin Pennant has that story.
Preliminary results show that the JLP, led by Andrew Holness, has won 49 seats, while the People's National Party, PNP, led by Dr. Peter Phillips, won 14 seats. However, these results may change following recounts. In his victory speech at the JLP's headquarters on Belmont Road, Mr. Holness said this was a victory for the Jamaican people.
Tonight, the victor is the people of Jamaica. You came out in your hundreds of thousands and you participated in the solemn process of democracy. You voted. You expressed yourself through the ballot. There is indeed cause for celebration, but there is also, I would believe, significant cause for consideration. There are many Jamaicans who did not participate. There are many Jamaicans who, for fear of the virus, decided not to come to the polls. But there are also many Jamaicans who, for other reasons, apathy, frustration with the process, decided not to participate. So even though we have this overwhelming majority and the people have given us the mandate that we require, we are still considerate of those Jamaicans who still look on with some suspicion, some concern, some apathy on the political process. So we are very cautious in our approach to receiving this overwhelming majority. It must never be that the government that emerges from this victory takes on any characteristics of arrogance, of inhumility. It must never be.
The Prime Minister-elect was sober in victory, reminding the nation of the ongoing battle against COVID-19.
And you will notice that I'm speaking to you while still wearing my mask as a symbol that we are still under serious threat of the pandemic. By and large, I think most Jamaicans tried to abide by the protocols. I want to give the assurance to Jamaicans tonight that your government will continue its effective management of the COVID pandemic to keep you safe and to protect your livelihoods. No doubt we are entering into a new phase of the pandemic, an inevitable phase of the pandemic, and that will require a new strategy of management. But whatever we do, you can rest assured that we will keep you safe, we will keep our frontline workers safe, we will make the necessary allocations in our budget so that you can be cushioned and cope with the economic fallout that accompanies the pandemic.
For his part, PNP leader Dr. Peter Phillips never gave a public statement. This came instead from Kingston East and Port Royal Member of Parliament, Philip Powell.
We have to acknowledge that people don't support a party that they perceive to be as disunited. And that's why so much effort was put into resolving those issues. And I think we did do a good job, a credible job, in bringing back those of the comrades who did not win in September last year. To be a part of the campaign, I myself worked very closely with Comrade Bunting, and we've had an excellent period. Perhaps I didn't have enough time to convince the Jamaican people that we were solidly and totally united. And it is work that we have to now do to ensure that the Jamaican people can once more put their faith and confidence in us.
However, Mr. Holness said he received a concession call from Dr. Phillips.
Tonight, I received a call from Dr. Phillips conceding and congratulating. And I thought that was very sportsmanlike and very dignified, and really reflects well on our politics.
This is the 18th general election to be held in the country since universal adult suffrage in 1944. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
The death toll from COVID-19 has moved to 29. On Thursday, the Ministry of Health and Wellness reported the passing of 2 more persons due to COVID-19. The island also recorded 74 new positive in the last 24 hours. Here are the details.
The 2 latest COVID-19 related deaths are of an 81-year-old female from St. Anne and a 35-year-old male from Manchester. Both deceased had comorbidities, namely diabetes and hypertension. There are now 29 COVID-19 related deaths in Jamaica. The island has also recorded 1 additional case of a coincidental death of a person confirmed with SARS-CoV-2. This is a case that was previously recorded as a death under investigation. The case is a 56-year-old male from Clarendon. The 74 new positives recorded in the last 24 hours bring to 2,896 the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases. Here is a breakdown of those cases. 25 were reported in Kingston and St. Andrew, 14 in St. Catherine, 5 in St. Thomas, 6 in Manchester, 21 in St. Elizabeth, and 1 in St. Anne, Westmoreland and St. James respectively. All of the new cases are under investigation. At this time, there are 459 imported cases, 659 cases that are contacts of confirmed cases, 236 related to the workplace cluster in St. Catherine, 242 transmissions not epidemiologically linked, and 1,300 under investigation. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
As the country tries to recover from the COVID-19-induced economic contraction, tourism remains one of the avenues to do so. Recently, a group of stakeholders addressed JIS think tanks to give an update on compliance within the sector and the work of the COVID-19 Resilient Corridors Committee since its establishment. The group included Committee Chairman John Biles, President of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association Omar Robinson, and the Chairman of Jamaica Cooperative Automobile Limousine Tours Limited, Brian Thelwell.
If you look in the Caribbean, not many countries took the bold move to put in place a resilient corridor. Resilient corridor is important because if you notice throughout the Caribbean and the world, countries have either gone full open or major lockdown. Jamaica, because of the size of our country, it would be very, very tough to go with a full lockdown. And because we are concerned about everybody's health, it would be very tough to go with opening everything up. So the resilient corridor was put in place, I say, with a lot of joy, to enable an in-between ground so that our industry can have a chance to not prosper, but to survive. It's important because, and one of the reasons why I'm here and feel very strongly, is because there are hundreds of thousands of linkages, word is overused a bit, but hundreds of thousands of lives and hundreds of communities that are independent on each other from tourism. They either work directly in this industry, indirectly in the industry, and this process goes back and forth, back and forth. You cannot count the amount of connections that tourism brings to the North Coast.
What we have seen to date is that it has worked reasonably well. It has worked well. As a result of it working well, we look to say, what is it that we have really achieved on the corridor? It is nothing different than what our Minister of Health has, and our Ministry of Health has put forward within the protocols for the entire nation. The only difference I would say is that because of the smaller geographic area, we have really focused on making sure the compliance is in place. So what is it that we're talking about? We're talking about the wearing of masks. We're talking about the social distancing. We're talking about the sanitization. We're talking about reducing the amount of gathering. It's not rocket science.
The Lakes Penn and Lyndhurst Road Pound locations of the Transport Authority are closed to the public today, Friday, September 4. Both are slated to reopen for business on Monday, September 7. Customers of the Transport Authority may contact the Customer Care Center at 876-618-0959 or send an email to customer service at ta.org.jm. Veteran public servant Errol Miller has been appointed the new chairman of the Industrial Disputes Tribunal. His appointment took effect Tuesday, September 1, 2020. Mr. Miller, who was a career civil servant, has over 40 years of experience in the public sector. Labor and Social Security Minister Lester Mike Henry says Mr. Miller's experience in the field of industrial relations has prepared him well for his new position as chairman of the IDT. Legendary reggae singer Frederick "TOOTS" Hibbert, who is 78 years old, is now in a medically induced coma at the University Hospital of the West Indies. His publicist, Claude Mills, says he's fighting for his life and his family is asking for prayers. It is believed he may have contracted the novel coronavirus. It's understood that the singer was awaiting results from a COVID-19 test after displaying symptoms. Members of the artist's inner circle have reportedly self-quarantined and have also taken COVID-19 tests. The three-time winner of the Jamaica Festival Song Competition was one of 10 finalists for 2020 competition with his entry, Rise Up Jamaicans. Google has celebrated Jamaican-born British doctor and civil rights pioneer Dr. Harold Moody via Google Doodle. The dedicated page read in part on September 1, today's doodle, illustrated by Dublin-based guest artist Charlotte Christensen, celebrates Jamaican-born British doctor, racial equality campaigner and founder of the UK's first civil rights movement, Dr. Harold Moody. Harold Moody was born on October 8, 1882 in Kingston, but would pursue medical studies in the UK. Alongside his medical work, he dedicated his life to campaigning for racial equity and advocating against discrimination. He founded the League of Colored Peoples in 1931 with a mission to fight for racial equality both in the UK and around the world. We now get an extended edition of the Business Report with Gabriel Thompson.
As we continue to live with COVID-19, many businesses have had a hard time. Some have laid off workers or closed completely. For others, there's the issue of job security or looking to rebuild a business, reconnect with customers, or even start over. Financial coach Denise Williams has advice for you. But first, she wants you to answer this question.
Are you investing in your own development? That's just number one. Because investing in yourself is a critical way to build your career and your finances. Okay? I mean, you listen to this program, and are you ready to take a leap to be an entrepreneur? Or are you ready to upskill in the current job you have? And the truth is, there's some critical things that you need to look at in order to navigate in this COVID period. Have you developed your skill sets? If you're a makeup artist, if you are a mason, if you are anyone that sells a service, financial coach, to people, how are you developing your skill sets? Because we all sell and we all market ourselves in different ways. What's yours? Do you have an understanding of your investment portfolio? Is this a time to speak to your banker or your financial advisor or hire a financial coach? Because again, investment is looking at the long term. What about the outcome of your career? Are you in a job you hate? Are you doing something that drives you crazy, but you only do it for the money? Well, that means you're not growing. And, one of the things COVID has shown us is that growth and personal development is the only thing we can control. And so, knowing your career outcome, you may need to visit career websites, hire a career coach, and develop your skills and becoming an entrepreneur. Maybe the 9 to 5 isn't for you, but better believe if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to do more than 9 to 5 in terms of hours. But if it's something you love and it's something you're committed to, and this is how you can serve your community with integrity and passion, I say go for it. So, the critical thing is invest in your own development in COVID so that you can be in control of what you know and you're not tossed about as there's just so much uncertainty.
Thanks, Denise. For more information on financial development, head on over to financiallyfocused.com. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 1,739 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 73 stocks, of which 38 advanced, 24 declined, and 11 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 3 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Access Financial Services, and BARITA Investments Limited. Stocks declined for Blue Par Group Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Carreras Limited. Trading firm were Dermont Trading Company, Epley Limited 8.25%, and G West Corporation Limited ordinary shares. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 3.8 million units, followed by Mailpack Group Limited with 3.5 million units and Scotia Group Jamaica Limited with 1.1 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Thursday, September 3, ended trading at $147.81. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $113.06. The pound sterling traded for $199.78, and the euro ended trading at $179.77. Oil held above $44 a barrel on Friday and was on course for its biggest weekly decline since June, as weak demand figures added to concern over a slow recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Brent crude futures rose 28 cents to $44.35 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 18 cents to $41.55 a barrel. And that's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Stay tuned after the news for the entertainment recap with Alicia Steele. In regional news, another COVID-19 related death has brought the total number of deaths in Trinidad and Tobago to 29. The Ministry of Health says the latest death is that of an elderly male with pre-existing health conditions. The announcement comes with the news that 43 persons have tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the number of active cases to 1,255. However, the ministry says the figure is not representative of the positive cases in the last 24 hours only, as the samples were taken from the period August 28 to September 3. Sunil Lala has more.
The TTRNA is calling for the immediate resignation of the Chief Executive Officer of the North Central Regional Health Authority, Davlin Thomas, after it says some questionable decisions have been made with regards to the management of the COVID-19 facilities and healthcare workers. TTRNA President Edie Stewart claims that the NCRHA placed over 20 junior nurses in both the ICU and HDU areas where he believes specialist nurses should have been. Additionally, he alleges that a COVID-19 patient died as a result of the NCRHA not having a nurse to operate a dialysis machine at the Couva Hospital.
A dialysis patient dying at Couva. And I want to tell that family, because I was privy to some of the communication going back and forth, trying to get a dialysis nurse to go up to Couva, and the frantic attempts by the family to have that done. And in the end, it was too late.
But this was denied by NCRHA's CEO, Davlin Thomas, who says the patient who needed that care received it.
The person who originally was on shift apparently was in an accident, and therefore we had to call in someone else to do the actual CRT for that patient. And what essentially we would have had to do was to get someone through the director of nursing for the country. The country doesn't have, it's not a service that there are many pieces of equipment within the country to do it.
Meanwhile, the TTRNA president also alleged that the general manager of the NCRHA recently resigned due to her inability to influence nursing decisions, adding that she was unable to convince senior administration to listen to advice from nurses and midwives. However, he acknowledged that the general manager did in fact resign, but says it was due to other factors.
A few months ago, the GM, when COVID-19 started, the GM has health conditions that have a correlation with putting her at risk, and had been asking to be able to step aside. We asked her to hold until we had someone who she would have identified.
The TTRNA also claimed that the specialist ICU Cuban nurses who were brought to TNT are not actually competent in ICU and have not been working at the Cuba hospital. Mr. Thomas, though, says he is unsure where the TTRNA is getting its information, since these nurses are functioning at the hospital. The TTRNA, meanwhile, says it intends to write a letter to the Health Ministry and the Prime Minister demanding the resignation of Mr. Thomas, and is threatening to ramp up its action if this is not done. Sonolala, TTT News.
In St. Kitts and Nevis, the Minister of Education says some schools will reopen using a shift system. We have more in this report.
Schools on St. Kitts and Nevis will reopen on the 7th September, with students reporting to their classrooms on the 9th of September. Minister Powell said that schools will reopen with safety protocols fully in place and with operational procedures that will facilitate effective teaching and successful learning experiences for students. Appearing on the recent program of the Prime Minister Leadership Matters, the Minister of Education said also that schools with the largest populations will reopen and operate under a shift system.
There are certain schools that will be resuming on a shift system, and this is being done because we are confident in the procedures and processes that we have in place. And those schools have been identified based on their population, so these would be the larger schools. And the primary schools which will be operating on a shift system are the Beach Allen Primary, the Dr. William Connor Primary, the Sandy Point Primary, the Tucker Clark Primary, and the Cotton Thomas School. The secondary schools that will be opening on a shift system are the Washington Archibald High School and the Bastia High School. Teachers will be expected to come out to work for the entire day as normal. They will be expected to report to work at 8 a.m. and complete their day of work at 4 p.m. In terms of the hours that the children will be required to attend school, for grades 4 and higher, the children will be expected to report to school at 8:30, and sorry, let me correct that. Schools that are not on shift system, you go to school, it's full day school as normal, 8:30 to 3:30. Those who are on the shift system will be required to come out for the morning shifts, those who attend the morning shifts, at 8:25 a.m., and that shift will end at 12:15. So if you are attending school on the morning shift, you come at 8:25, and that shift concludes at 12:15. If you're coming for the afternoon shift, you report to school for 12:50 in the afternoon, and that will go down, that shift goes down until 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, we have adjusted the length of the different periods during these shift systems. Normally in a regular, unaffected school day, children would have 7 different periods of instruction. We have adjusted the time frame for these periods so that the children will now have 5 hours of instruction within a shift. So we are trying our best to ensure that although it is a different system, that the children are benefiting from as much instruction as possible. And we, again, ask parents and guardians to make a note of this information and to work with us. Although you may be required to have your child report at 8:25, we want you to bring them a little earlier. And different schools will be reaching out. They have already started reaching out to the parents and guardians through letters and WhatsApp chats, as they have in different schools, to put together a list in terms of staggered times for children to report to school so that we don't have too many children coming to school at the same time. Similarly, break time and break periods and lunch periods will be staggered so that we don't have too many children coming out and playing and having some recreation at the same time. I provide this particular information at this point to show that a lot of work has been put in place, and we are indeed confident that we will resume next week in a very healthy and efficient way.
Minister Powell said that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the COVID-19 Task Force, is making available to the public the document Guidelines for the Reopening of Primary and Secondary Schools for the school year 2020 to 2021. He said the document will be available to the public as of the 2nd September 2020. Glenn Bart, SKN Newsline.
In Guyana, the Health Ministry says it's facing some challenges in trying to clear the backlog of COVID-19 tests. News source Guyana's Gordon Mosley spoke with Health Minister Frank Anthony about the situation.
Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony has admitted that the Ministry of Health is facing a challenge in the turnaround time for test results for coronavirus. Just after taking office a month ago, the new Pbcj administration ramped up testing for COVID-19 across the country. But the turnaround time for results moved from 2 to 3 days to 2 to 3 weeks. In an update provided by the government's Department of Public Information, Dr. Anthony said efforts are being made to address the backlog. He explained that currently the backlog of tests to be completed stands at close to 1,000. The backlog was almost 1,900, but earlier this week 500 samples were sent to the Caribbean Public Health Agency in Trinidad and Tobago. The results are not back as yet. Dr. Anthony said capacity to complete additional tests in Guyana is the major hurdle. He explained that since he took office and the decision was made to increase testing, a new shift system was introduced at the National Public Health Reference Laboratory. There are now 3 shifts in place working around the clock, but there is a need for additional testing machines, and that will be addressed soon, the health minister said.
We were doing probably about 60 samples per day when I took over, and we have changed that. We are now doing between 250, sometimes 300 samples a day. We have moved from having 1 shift to now having 3 shifts. But even with all of these improvements, it is now still a challenge to cope. And the only way we can increase our capacity is that we'll have to get some new machines. We have, instead of having 1 line working 3 shifts, we probably have to get 3 lines working 3 shifts.
As news source reported last evening, some medical doctors have expressed worry about the length of time it has been taking for test results to be returned. Some persons have found themselves self-isolating for up to 2 to 3 weeks as they wait on their results. The health minister said that's an issue being addressed.
In sports, we roll off with cricket. Torrential rain washed out the latest clash between Jamaica Tallawahs and the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. Each side secured a point from the shortened match. Tallawahs remaining in 4th on 7 points, and the Patriots staying bottom of the pile on 3 points. A victory in one of their 2 remaining games will see Tallawahs reach the final 4, while Patriots have been officially eliminated. And over to football. Former national footballer Jermaine Teddy Johnson is among 3 people recovering from gunshot wound in hospital. Reports are that Johnson was one of 3 people shot on Laws Street and Foster Lane in central Kingston Thursday afternoon. The 40-year-old Johnson, who plays for Tivoli Gardens Football Club in the local Red Stripe Premier League, Tivoli Gardens netball player Nicole Henry, and a man known only as Fidel, were the people rushed to the Kingston Public Hospital, where they were admitted in serious but stable condition. Reports are that just after the polls closed, the 3 were sitting in a group when men in a car drove up and opened fire. The police on the scene say the shooting appears to be linked to an ongoing gang feud in the area. In other sporting news, the disgraced former vice president of the International Football Federation, FIFA, Austin Jack Warner, remains in hospital after he tested positive for the novel coronavirus COVID-19, which has killed 29 people and affected 1,984 others in Trinidad and Tobago. Warner, who's 77 years old, a former senior government minister who had failed to win a seat in the August 10 general election, had in a statement posted on his Facebook page confirmed that he tested positive for the virus that was first detected in China last December. Warner, who is facing extradition to the United States on fraud charges related to his tenure as a senior Globe official, is the 2nd former government minister in the Tun Island Republic to test positive for COVID-19. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for making it PBCJ. We are the People's Station.